All right, so our next section is related to misassignments. Let's talk a little bit about them. We'll look at some scenarios and what steps you can take to prevent potential misassignments in CalSAAS. We'll start with discussing the pull-out and push-in teachers that you're reporting. So one of the issues that they saw was that many exceptions were triggered when support or RSP teachers were reported as team teachers. And the reason that happened was each SEID is evaluated by CalSAAS independently and is expected to hold the correct credential and authorization for the state course codes that are reported. So basically, what you want to do is ensure that your resource specialist program teachers should not be reported as co-teachers when they're providing pull-out or push-in support for students with disabilities who have been mainstreamed into general education classes. If the teacher is providing support instruction, which is supplementary to their primary instruction, in any subject to students with disabilities in a pull-out or push-in setting, the teacher should be reported with a state course code of 9231, which is Special Education Support Resource Specialist Program. And in addition to that, the instructional strategy code in the course section file should be populated with the code 700, which is Special Education. So you may, but you're not required to submit student course section records for students that are receiving the support instruction from these teachers, as long as the job classification code for the teacher is 27, which is pull-out, push-in, itinerant, in which case student course section records are not required for them. And there are a couple of important FAQs listed on the right side of this slide. If you have questions, please refer to those FAQs for more detailed information. All right, so another area is reporting courses taught by teachers not employed by the LEA. So CalSAAS misassignments are generated for any course section reported with the generic SEID of the 9s, right? A SEID of 999s is generally used when the teacher teaching a course is not an employee of the reporting LEA. And the reason for this is that CalSAAS doesn't have any information to determine whether or not the teacher is appropriately authorized. And therefore, the system will predetermine these as vacancies, which result as misassignments. So the solution would be to obtain the SEID and report the staff demographics and the staff assignment data for the teacher to CalPACS. That would be ideal. Or provide the teacher's SEID to the monitoring authority when the CalSAAS monitoring window opens, and the MA can clear this vacancy as an appropriate assignment. And here we have a little bit background on the generic SEID numbers. Basically, the generic SEID of 999 in the course record is allowed. However, the only assignments with the generic SEID of 999 that will not generate exceptions and are not displayed in CalSAAS are those that were identified in CalPACS as dual enrollment or college credit courses. And it shows you how that information is reported in CalPACS. But other than that, all other courses with the generic SEID will automatically be flagged as misassignments, which are vacancies. And vacancies are, again, all misassignments. Now, this slide was introduced last year with some additional clarification for reporting your college credit courses. There are a lot of various conditions that have to be met in order for you to consider the courses as college credit courses. So the students would have to pass the course with a grade of C- or better. They have to earn college credits upon completion of the course by the time they graduate and complete a minimum number of semesters, quarters, or trimesters of college coursework. And another important condition is that the college level courses are those where the LEA or the school has courses open for students to enroll in. So this is not when a student takes a college course independently on their own. that has no association or oversight with the school or LEA. So that's really important for all of you to remember and keep in mind as you're submitting your college credit courses, right? And there's some additional information on this slide as well that you can review. All right. So moving on, your teacher of record. Another issue arises when teacher of record may be on leave on census day and a long-term or short-term substitute is teaching on census day for them. So which teacher should be reported? The teacher of record must always be reported, even if they're on leave. Subs are only to be reported when there is a vacancy or no teacher of record on census day is there. And there is an FAQ again on this slide that provides a little bit more information on that, but you're always reporting teachers of records who are on leave on census day. So exceptions also trigger for teachers that are teaching courses but are on local waivers, also known as local assignment options. And the reason this happens is because local assignment options are not recorded in the SIS and reported to CalSAAS in Fall-2. So to address this, you would need to determine which teachers are teaching courses on local assignment option and then ensure that they are entered in the appropriate place in your local SIS and reported to CalSAAS. Another area is reporting middle school course settings, and many exceptions were triggered for middle school teachers teaching departmentalized courses. And what happened was teachers teaching grades 5 through 8 who had multiple subject credentials and were authorized to teach 2 or more subject areas in a departmentalized setting to the same students in the same day. However, the courses were not identified as being part of the middle school course setting for them. So you want to avoid misassignments in such scenarios by ensuring that all courses that the teacher is teaching as part of the middle school core are identified with a middle school course setting indicator of Y in the course section record and in your student information system. And that course section record is then uploaded to CalSAAS. So that middle school course setting indicator is very important to keep an eye on. Okay, so another area is the English learner services. Many exceptions were generated for teachers who did not have the appropriate English learner service authorizations. And basically what happened was in CalSAAS, if there are ELS students enrolled in a course section, LEAs are required to populate an EL service code. However, in some cases, the teacher is not authorized to provide that EL service, and that causes that exception. So you want to make sure that the EL services that you report on the course reflect all EL services that are being provided in the course for all of your English learners. In some instances, if the teacher is not providing any EL services, then you would report them with a code of 5. However, if you do report the teacher as not providing English learner services because they're not authorized to do so, very likely it will come down to the fact that they will end up as misassignments. So the key is to avoid this at all costs and don't assign English learners to teachers who don't have the appropriate authorizations. So you want to make sure that you work with your credential analyst at the beginning of the year to ensure the courses are populated correctly. Reporting your non-classroom based or support assignment codes of 6020. So exceptions will trigger for 6020 non-classroom based support assignment codes, which is the other certificated non-instructional assignment. That's because CalSAAS lacks sufficient information to determine what the assignment actually is, and therefore the use of this code will always generate an exception. So the solution is for your pull-out or push-in teachers providing instruction, report a course section with the appropriate state course code. For staff in non-instructional assignment, if there's no other appropriate non-classroom based assignment codes, then you will have to provide information to your MA to clear the exception. And also, because we have the new non-classroom based assignment codes, that may help also. You would be using one of those where appropriate instead of the 60/20 to avoid the misassignment exceptions. Hopefully that helps. So those were some scenarios, and this slide provides some resources for your Fall-2 assignment monitoring. There are some reports, the PAMO reports, link in there on the top, and there are links related to CTE appropriate credentials, as well as the admin assignment manual. There is a listserv also that you can subscribe to related to CTC, and a very good FAQ page related to credentials, which is this last link here. Great resources. So if you have CalSAAS questions, where to direct assignment monitoring questions? Well, LEAs should direct questions to their monitoring authority. Their monitoring authority for their districts is their county office of education. And if you're a charter, the monitoring authority for charter schools is their chartering authority. And this is regardless of how the charter is funded, directly or locally, or how the charter schools report their data to CalSAAS. So districts, both that are monitoring authorities and those that are not, should address their CalSAAS questions to their COEs, and their COE monitoring authorities, if they have questions, should direct their questions to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing.